Hey guys, Kenny here. Wanted to do a quick video recap of what we saw from the market today across the various tickers that I've been tracking. Held a charting session last night for members of my community, and we had a chance to go through all of the various tickers that I kind of monitor on a week to week or day to day basis, depending on the ticker. And so for the Qs, we started here around this particular level, which was inside of a high volume node as we kicked off the session. We pushed out. We tried to push the auction down. We saw some support here. Aggressive buyers stepped in to stop the free fall and then push price back up into this high time frame, high volume node. And then we kind of rotated in and out for the remaining part of the session. So if you caught this initial flush, you did pretty well. If you saw the exhaustion here and the reversal, then you were able to catch this move back up into the high time frame, high volume node, and should have done pretty well on that particular trade. I didn't take it today, but that's just kind of taking a quick look at the recap of it. For the S&P 500, we also saw an immediate flush as we started off the session. We came down and then we saw a retrace back up into this area as well. So we flushed back through this high time frame, high volume area, and then we navigated our way back up into the middle of the what we refer to as the highways, which is in between two high time frame, high volume node areas, which we refer to as cities. So there's a highway that connects two cities, and as a result of this immediate flush, we weren't able to see or maintain prices at the lower level. And so price traveled back up into the middle of this highway, and then we kind of rotated in between the highway and the city for the remaining part of the session. And taking a look at Microsoft, this was one that we took a immediate interest in while we were charting last night. And so we started the session, we pushed up into this upper high time frame, high volume node, also known as a city. And so if you were able to take the long coming out of the gate, we saw some consolidation here, some balance here. And then we ultimately finished towards the bottom part of this high time frame, high volume area to conclude the session. This was a pretty good move if you were able to catch the long out of the gate. Moving over to Apple, we saw pretty much a rotation between this lower city right here, which we would call the high time frame, high volume area. So this city right here in this gray shaded area up through the next high time frame, high volume node to the upside. And so we're able to kind of rotate in between the two of those, and you could play both sides, taking the shorts from the upper part of the range and taking the long from the lower part of this range, which would have only really yielded you maybe one, and then you would have gotten stopped out over here. So the bigger play was the long coming out of the gate and then the two touches throughout the course of the session, rotating back into the lower area. And taking a look at Google, let's see where we started. We saw another long coming out of the gate. It was opened up inside of this high time frame, high volume node. We pushed out. We tried to seek acceptance to the upside. Saw a little bit of consolidation acceptance building here. And then we saw a rotation as prices begin to reject these higher prices. And we finished the session outside of this high time frame, high volume area, but not as high as the high of the day. And so we were able to get some acceptance in this particular area right here. So we pushed up, we tried to build some value in this area right here, but then we pushed price pushed back down. We were able to get some acceptance to close out the period or session in this particular range. And so for those who are unfamiliar with my style, I'm looking to try to take plays that are moving out of a state of balance into a state of imbalance. And so these types of moves where we see these pushes from one level to the next are the ones that are very appealing to me. And I take trades based off of volume profile and also some of these anchored volume weighted average price levels as well. And so this is a move that was more of an imbalance move. And then we saw the state of balance. You could have played the reversal out of this and taken a short victorious trade here. And then we saw this kind of balance rotation here, which I don't like to particularly trade. We see Amazon coming out of the gate. We saw long, and then we saw this kind of, movement, slow, steady grind to the upside, and then a rotation to finish out the rest of the session. So you could have taken a long out of the gate up to this next high time frame, high volume node, also known as a city, and then you would have had a rotation between the two cities to close out the session. Taking a look at NVIDIA, we saw an immediate flush to start the session, which if you were able to capture this particular flush from 215 down into this area that was around 210-ish. That was the move of the day. The rest of it was just kind of this rotation within this high time frame, high volume node. And then we saw a movement out of this zone to close out at the zone underneath it as well. And so if you were able to catch that initial flush, then you were good. If you were able to play some of these smaller rotations, then would have had some success throughout the course of the session. But I'm not necessarily interested in playing these smaller rotations. I'll play balanced moves if they give me a bigger range to engage with. So I would have stayed away from this if I missed this initial flush. And then if we take a look at Palantir, we saw a rejection to start the session. And then we saw this movement to the upside, very similar to what we saw with, well, it has a similar look as Amazon, but there's no real correlation. But then we saw this acceptance here, and then we saw a rotation back into this high time frame, high volume area. And then the last stock ticker that I typically look at, and this one looks very similar to what we saw with Palantir, flush out of the gate, and then kind of this rotation. Let's see if it looks similar to, yep, looks very similar to Palantir. So they kind of took a similar road to execute throughout the course of the session. Um, Initial flush, and then we saw a rotation back up, and then a rotation back into this area of balance. Once again, I'm not necessarily interested in playing middle of the balance area, so I usually take trades at the extreme edges. And if I did so, I would have, gotten, if you would have caught this initial flush, that would have been a good one. If you were able to capture this reversal back into this value or area of balance or acceptance, that would have been a good one. You could have taken it back here. And then if you would have taken a rotation from here back into the middle of this acceptance area, that would have also been a trade that could have been worthwhile as well. But, trading is unique to individuals. You have your preference on the types of trades that you want to take. I prefer to take imbalanced trades because those tend to yield the bigger moves, but I also understand that it's important to take and capitalize on what the market gives you. And so that would have been the case for those respective stocks. My baby is always going to be the ES futures. That's what my primary ticker of observation and execution is. And so being able to kind of take a look at that throughout the course of the session yesterday evening, as we were, conducting the charting session, and then being able to kind of carry that into what we saw today from a New York session perspective. It gave us a flush down and then kind of that move up and then a rotation. This was a bigger rotation, so this would be one that I would typically play, and I did play that today as well. I didn't catch this initial flush to the downside, but I was able to catch some of these rotations back. I caught this long here, and I caught this short to the downside. So that was the end of my particular trading for today across ES. And, of course, if you want to play NQ, you can do so as well. I don't typically play NQ. I tend to stay with the more reserved, the reserve ticker. And I don't particularly like jumping on the bunking Broncos. So as a result of that, this is typically the ticker that you'll see me play, and then I'll pick one of the core stocks to trade options on. Potentially throughout the course of the week. So that's what we have as we concluded today, which is Monday, August the 24th, and look forward to seeing what will take place in the market as we transition into Tuesday, August the 25th. All right, take care. Peace.